People will not rally around the flag, but at least within the supporters of the Islamic Republic, the division between them stops and they will rally around the flag within the regime supporters, not the Iranian people, but within regime supporters, we get some sort of rally around the flag. There is no rally around the flag when it comes to the Iranian people. Anybody who tells you that is full of shit. The Iranian people do not rally around the Islamic Republic flag when Israel or United States attacks. But there is some sort of an effect within the Islamic Republic forces itself, right? So this is why the Islamic Republic feels secure into doing mass slaughter on the Iranian people, because its understanding is that even if the world gets involved, what are they going to do? More sanctions, more bombing, some of us die, the Islamic Republic will continue. But I think they miscalculated this one because Israel convinced that United States that this is a once in a lifetime opportunity for us to basically get rid of one of the four evils in the world. The four being like the Islamic Republic, North Korea's government, China's government, and Russia's government. So 25% removal of the headache for Western power is like a really, it's very appealing. And given that we now have boots on the ground in the millions, which is the Iranian people, the calculation is that okay, regime change is possible if we d- given that Iranian people have shown their capacity to be mobilizing by this much, that means that if we remove the obstacles from their way, they could basically capture government institutions and buildings, and that will result in regime change, right? Israel always wanted regime change in Iran because for Israel this is an existential threat. At some point the Islamic Republic is going to become nuclear, and if they become nuclear and if their ballistic missile, even before that, if their ballistic missiles get to 2000, that would mean that they have a deterrence capability where it's always going to be difficult for Israel to make any other moves against the Islamic Republic, and the Islamic Republic will be able to keep supporting terrorists more October 7th against Israel indefinitely for basically forever, right? So Israel cannot accept that. Israel cannot, especially after they experience one October 7th, they are done with that, and there is no way for Israel to just be able to allow the Islamic Republic to just continue become nuclear or become a force with their, force to be reckoned with because of the number of ballistic missiles they have. So, one way or another, and the only way to stop the Islamic Republic from achieving these two goals is for regime change. There is no way that you could come up with a version of the Islamic Republic where this will not happen. If the Islamic Republic exists, at some point they are going to have nuclear weapon, or at some point they are going to, because it doesn't make any sense from the perspective of the Islamic Republic. You have to also understand that it doesn't make any sense not to do this, because you have lost your, many of your deterrence capabilities, and you're basically like sitting there for Israelis to be able to come and do whatever they want with you. The only way for you to eventually survive is to demonstrate your deterrence capabilities, which is basically these two: having nuclear weapons or having getting to 2000 ballistic missiles, right? And so basically we're in a situation where Islamic Republic cannot accept Israel having the upper hand, so it needs these deterrent capabilities, and Israel cannot accept the Islamic Republic having these deterrent capabilities. So, because of the situation, one of them has to be defeated, right? You either have to get Israel to just accept that they're going to accept terrorism and attacks on their land forever and ever and ever, or the Islamic Republic has to go regime change. There's no middle ground. There's no other solution. So this is the Israel's calculation, but for America's calculation, like this is more of an Israeli problem than an American problem. It is still an American problem, but not in the same way that it is for Israel. For America, the Islamic Republic is a problem because they are a point of leverage for Russia and China, and it's basically a way to keep poking at America whenever you need to make sure that some of America's military resources are focused in the Middle East, right? So imagine if the Islamic Republic was not such a threat to Americans' allies in the Middle East, and also to all of these oil and gas coming from the one of the most oil and gas rich part of the planet. Imagine if the Islamic Republic was not a problem. There are so many military assets that are now focused in the Middle East that could be focused in the Pacific, where the United States probably would prefer them to be, right? The United States, yeah, they would be freed up. That's like a lot of military assets. So this is what the America First isolationists don't understand, that you're wasting so much money in the Middle East because of the Islamic Republic being there. You're forced. American taxpayer is forced to spend waste so much money in the Middle East, maintaining stability there to keep the energy market stable because of the Islamic Republic. And any American who says that this has nothing to do with us, I'm pretty sure a destable energy market, you will be experiencing that in the price of everything in the United States. Everything, the price of everything is dependent on the price of oil and gas. So this is very much an America First policy to stabilize the Middle East. And right now, it's more expensive for America to stabilize the Middle East compared to the price of getting rid of the Islamic Republic. And basically, getting rid of the Islamic Republic is very much America first, right? So now that the Israelis have convinced the Americans that this is like, okay, let's hold on to this attack and do something a lot more significant, the Americans are now probably preparing for something much bigger. And this is the reason why the preparation for this war takes longer than a lot of people were hoping for, is because Americans cannot have less tolerance for losing soldiers, right? Because Israelis have more tolerance because Israelis are fighting for their survival. So they understand the cost of survival. So they understand that this is the cost of war. But for American citizens, this is not for America's survival, right? So why should our soldiers die? Why should our soldiers die when America is pretty much safe? Okay, yeah, this is good for our markets. This is good for stability. This is good for trade, maybe, but we're not. America is not going to go anywhere. So, America, when they want to get into war, to be again, America is a democracy, so you have to make sure you don't pay a huge political price for going into war. When you want to do war at this scale, the preparations need to be long enough to the degree where you could minimize the cost to American assets and lives of their soldier to the minimum, preferably to zero. We want to make sure that you don't have to come and explain to Americans why some of our soldiers had to die. Preferably, if you could show that we did this, nobody died, that would be amazing, right? So, and remember, this is we have so many examples of this, like during the first Persian Gulf with the Persian Gulf War when Saddam invaded Kuwait. I think it took them 5 months of preparation to eventually attack Saddam and liberate Kuwait. I think it took 5 months, right? For attacking Afghanistan, it took a couple of months. For attacking Saddam again, the second time, it took more than a month. For attacking Panama, it took more than a month. Yeah, so these things take time, and honestly, right now we're in a situation where the more time it takes, the worse it is for the Islamic Republic. Usually it's the other way around. Usually the Islamic Republic is buying time because they're recovering, they're licking their wounds, and negotiations are a way for them to recover and build their resource, build their missiles, and rebuild their proxies. But this time, the Islamic Republic is suffocating, and it's the Americans who are preparing. So negotiations mean more preparation for America and more suffocating by the Islamic Republic and more division within the Islamic Republic and more isolation of the Islamic Republic. So buying time this time is working in the favor of Americans. And this is why the Islamic Republic might actually attack Israel and start the war early, because they're noticing that the more they wait, the more assets, the more military assets are being gathered around their borders. So they might actually, like, if the war is coming, we might as well start early. Shauna, I think, was right.
Yeah, I had a question, and
Yeah.
and then I did put Shauna on the list as well. You're talking about Witkoff heading over and, getting information from Israel in regard to their terms. How about what kind of, maybe this is more for Jeffrey, but Armin, he's likely also going over there to see what type of intel that they've gathered, that he's not just picking up the phone and getting information on. Um, which either way suggests movement soon. Um, what could expedite? What information could he potentially receive that can expedite an attack?
Yeah, I think this is a good Jeffrey question. Jeffrey. Yeah.
Well, again, the environment is very fluid and changing. So one of the things that Israeli intelligence, I would contend, gives us is intel on the proxy forces the Mullah regime uses as part and parcel of their deterrence package, right? So, like the House of Saud, what were they concerned about? They're concerned about like proxies doing things like swarm drone attacks against their refineries and that kind of stuff, like what happened in 2019. There's also reasons why the Israelis hit certain targets in Lebanon a couple of like in the past week or so. Yeah, that definitely helped. That probably almost assuredly, if Israel gives Witkoff their up to date intelligence on the proxy forces disposition and where they're at, that probably would help. Not the least of which is you have a lot of. I see Shauna wants to say something. It's all right. Go ahead. You can say.
No, no, no,
That's
no.
all.
That's not why they're making faces. Finish your thought, Jeffrey.
I was making faces because my cat is pawing at me with her claws.
So it probably again would be one of the larger pieces of intelligence that Israel could provide to us via Witkoff or any other member of the administration would be disposition of proxy forces both in the region and abroad. BT, you had mentioned one about how there are a lot of the assets that have been pre-placed here within the United States. That's the reason why we're doing things like ICE and the worst first and all that. I played a role in that. The previous administration, because of its lack of border security, allowed tens of thousands of assets, including members who are openly members of Hezbollah, Hamas, intelligence assets from the Chinese Communist Party, Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state, Mullah regime, and place themselves here. So that's one of the things we're worried about. That's one of the things we have to guard against. At least that would be my best guess anyway.
Wait, Jeffrey, one question. Is it like my understanding is that Israelis have so much more better information regarding Iran than Americans, and also because they've been involved there, and also the best information that you could get is the information while actively while actively doing operations. So because Israelis have been in the field, and also when it comes to attacks on the Islamic Republic, no matter how much information Americans have gathered on themselves, it's not going to be comparable to the information that Israeli have, because they already have done attacks on on Iranian inside, well, they were on Iranian airspace. So that's why the Americans need to talk to the Israelis regarding all the information they gathered, right? Is that correct?
And
Especially
also,
when it oh,
does do we have any reason to believe that Israel may have more or different intel on China than we do? Is that a
well,
possibility?
all actors have their own intelligence assessments on things and they don't share everything with even their allies for good reason. The idea that they probably have some things that we know that we don't know and we have things that they don't know, that's probably a fair bet. As far as arming 100%, like especially when it comes to proxy forces, not that US intelligence is not very good, it is. I'm saying because of the experience and focus, the focused nature and operational experience that Israel has, because they've been dealing with this existential threat forever,